Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. So I'll start, and I start saying good afternoon, everybody. Okay, I'm Barbara Balconi, and I'm a researcher at the Department of Human Science of Education at the University of Milano-Bicocca, and I'm going to speak about our research contribution INVALSI test for teaching teachers' beliefs about the validity of INVALSI test and teaching practices implemented. Our presentation is divided into 3 parts. I'll start giving you an introduction of the research, and then my colleague Elisa Truffelli, Associate Professor at the University of Bologna, present the data analysis, and then Daniela Maccario, Associate Professor at the University of Torino, will outline some interpretation about the data collected and will describe further research perspective. So I start saying that the INVALSI experience brought out in the school system many macro phenomena that could be analyzed by different perspectives. One specifically related to a discipline aspect, the second that could be defined as an educational perspective, which include the dimension of the teaching and learning processes, and the third that is related to the teacher's evaluational culture. The main aims of the research were to investigate the relationship between INVALSI tests and teaching learning processes at primary school through the voice of the teachers, specifically in the mathematics area. This is the first step to identify the training needs of teachers at the national level and to propose during the final phase of the research the guidelines to improve the teaching practices regarding the use of mathematics INVALSI items. Because of these reasons, this is an interdisciplinary research project started in 2017 inside CIRD, that is Italian Society for Educational Research, and also the research group is interdisciplinary and is composed by experts of mathematics area and also pedagogists. During the research, we implemented a questionnaire, and the main aim of the questionnaire is to investigate the beliefs of the teachers regarding the knowledge and the skills detected by the INVALSI test, and also to explore the proximity or the distance between function and content of the INVALSI item, and some statements about the teaching practices of the teachers. This questionnaire is divided in 3 sections. The first section concerning mathematics, the area of the mathematics education. The second section that concern aspects of general education. And the third section that concern personal data and context information about the teachers. In particular, we focus our attention about the teacher's beliefs regarding assessment function of INVALSI test. We would like to explore if teachers thought that these tests are useful for a formative assessment or not. And we would like also to explore teachers' beliefs regarding attitudes towards INVALSI test and the impact on the teaching practices. So we asked teachers if they thought that these tests are used or could be used in class with a training function or not. These beliefs are related to an attitude, a teacher's attitude, towards a formative assessment perspective or the ideology of the natural gift. And Also, we would like to explore with the questionnaire the teacher's awareness about the validity of the task of INVALSI item, but also teachers' awareness about the difficulty of the task of the INVALSI item. And specifically in this contribution, we would like to focus about the validity of the task of INVALSI item. We try to investigate these elements, asking teachers to declare their proximity or distance using some statements which describe teaching practices related to the use of INVALSI test in classroom. I'll now ask Elisa to go on with the presentation.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm going to explain the data analysis we have carried out. First of all, in the process of validation of the questionnaire, we consider content validity and aspect validity. The process consisted of several steps. We started from our theoretical framework to identify the most pertinent questions. Then we discussed each item of the questionnaire with a pool of experts for testing the aspect validity and the content validity. And then we administered to 105 teachers the questionnaire. We did a tryout of the instrument, and in the end, we modified lightly the instrument. Then we did the main study, and we involved 421 teachers. So finally, we involved 526 teachers. The statistical analysis developed in the first phase of this research project raised further questions in the research team. So the next, for example, what use is made of INVALSI test in the classroom? That is, do teachers use INVALSI questions for their teaching or not, and how they do it and how often they do it? What beliefs about the usefulness and validity of INVALSI test do teachers carry? Because we know that probably the beliefs of teachers are strongly connected to practice. So this last issue is the third question we did. Is there a link between these beliefs and the declaration of use of INVALSI test? We carried out further analysis, in particular a statistical correlation between teachers' beliefs about the type of knowledge and skills detected by the INVALSI test, its validity, and statements regarding the teaching practices connected with the use of INVALSI test in classroom. And we found three main important correlation that we want to discuss today with you. The first one is between the recognition of test INVALSI validity from one side and its use to work with students to enhance their skills in mathematics. The correlation coefficient of Pearson indicates that we have more than 30% of common variability between the two variables, and it is also statistically significant. So we can say that teachers who consider the INVALSI question suitable for assess specific knowledge and mathematical skills tend to use the question themselves to develop in the pupils those specific mathematical skills required by the items. And furthermore, a second correlation puts in evidence a link between the recognition of INVALSI test validity, again, and perceived usefulness for planning teaching. So teachers who consider the INVALSI question valid as assessment tools tend to consider the question of the test a useful tool for changing their practices and strategies in teaching. We have also, in this case, more than 30% of common variability between the two variables. And last correlation, this correlation shows a link between the use of INVALSI questions to design teaching and the use of these items to work with students to enhance their skills in the mathematics area. There is a strong link between the use of INVALSI questions to design teaching and the use of these items to work with students. In fact, the common variability explained is more than 50% this time. So teachers who identify in the INVALSI question of mathematics a useful tool for analyzing, reflecting, and planning their own teaching tend to use the question themselves in the classroom to develop mathematical skills, such as to train students with argumentation, to train students with the use of problem solving, and so on. So, in conclusion, which is the red line that connects the correlations we presented above? We think that some teachers believe that learning is not a matter of gift, but requires planning, work, improvement, time. A group of them, not all of them, obviously, but a group of them, starting from the recognition and INVALSI test validity, on one hand, develop reflection to improve and adapt the teaching proposal to their pupils, and on the other side, train student skills in mathematics. In conclusion, we need to develop further research in this field, and in fact, our research group planned to carry out a quantitative study with a representative sample and also qualitative in-depth studies on teacher practices in classroom. And this is the comment to data I developed so far. And if we have Daniela connected now, she can add something to our reflections as a conclusion. Or I can read something about from her slides. Well,
yes, Elisa, if you could read, because Daniela is now attending the permission to come inside the session, but I think that is not possible, and maybe you can read her slides.
Okay. In some cases, INVALSI tests seem to have an impact on declarative approaches to teaching, giving rise to habits of activity in the professional field. It may be useful to study their knowledge and understanding in depth in order to focus on elements of teaching quality that could possibly be exported and disseminated within the scope of accompanying initiative for the valorization of the INVALSI test as a potential tools for improving teaching and learning processes. And I want to add that we can do it only if we develop something like a qualitative study in depth, because we based our statistical data obviously on declaration about practices. So we need now to observe practices at school. A two-fold level of in-depth study can be investigated. Individual with a set of ad hoc tools for detecting representation and professional action focuses also on their often broadly pre-semantic nature. Modalities of participation within communities of practice. And Barbara, if you, thank you. And the emergence of distinctive dynamics potentially capable of bringing added value related to the use of INVALSI tests in the classroom emerging from the data suggests studying also alternative professional interpretation, characterized by greater misalignment between the use of tests and declared classroom teaching practices in order to make them the object of analysis in a proactive and improving manner, possibly also in and with teacher communities. So we want to involve them and to understand better their point of view about the validity of the test, the use they can do of the test, their beliefs about the formative use of INVALSI test for improving on the one side their teaching action, and on the other the skills of their students. So thank you very much for your attention, and if you have any question, please, we are listening to you now.
Yes, thank you, Elisa, also for keeping within the time frame. So well done. I think maybe first of all we will look around the lecture hall here to see if anyone has a question, and we have people with microphones.
Thank you for your presentation. I would like to ask you, just to clarify, what do you mean when you have asked the teacher to express their beliefs about the validity of the INVALSI test? Because when you're talking, it was more similar to the usefulness or to the usability of the INVALSI test, not the validity of the test itself. Thank you.
It's very clear to me, your question. We, for a reason of time, we decided not to display questions in this presentation, but there is a big difference between the two issues you mentioned, because when we asked them about validity, it was a matter of the validity of INVALSI test in assessing mathematical skills. So we asked them to express their point of view about it. And then we asked them also to explain us, to answer to questions, several questions about utility of INVALSI test. Is INVALSI test useful for you? How do you use it? How often do you use it for plan to design your teaching action, for example, or for train your students to pass the test, in other words, or because you want to train their ability, skills, or competencies. So we asked both of the issue you mentioned, but they were distinct, separated.
Okay, thank you for your answer. Is that an answer to your question? Yes, I get thumbs up. So thank you, Elisa. I'm looking at the people who are looking at the chats, but there are no questions in the chats. Are there still questions in the room? Otherwise, I also have a small question. I really liked your paper presentation, and I was wondering when you were presenting the results, what do you think about that it sometimes can be not so useful to teach to the test? Isn't there a danger in teaching to the test too? And did you somehow notice that in your research? And then I'm linking that to the misconceptions maybe. Maybe some teachers are really using the tests to adapt them and to make their own questions and to work with them. But maybe some teachers are just using the test to teach to the test. And what is it worth then in the end?
Exactly. There is a smaller group who use tests for a formative intent, and the larger one answered that use INVALSI tests for training students and to pass the test and so on. And our intention is to develop a qualitative study just for understand better the connections between several elements that allow teacher to be focused on formative assessment and a formative use of the test, and to develop a big formative plan for teachers. So this is our aim.
Thank you. And I think it's a very nice aim also for educations and also for the Italian education system, because it's very important. So thank you so much for your presentation.